we're running a little bit behind. We have missed a break. Would we like to take a 10-minute break and then come back for the eliminating barriers? Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah, let's go to the item 18, eliminating barriers report and recommendations from Vice Chair Ellis.
Sorry, just because we have Michelle and Carolyn from the Utah School of Deaf and the Blind here to answer questions, and so they've already been waiting. So if that's okay, and you'll entertain waiting for a break for a minute. We had our eliminating barriers task force last week, and the USDB had come before us with some items that they had identified as barriers, and so we had two motions come out of the committee for the board. There's other committee motions that were made, but the only ones coming before the board. Board Member Warner moved to approve discussion item allowing larger districts to opt out of the 3% rule subject to funding to the full board for recommendation to assign to a committee. And Member Cummins seconded the motion, and the vote passed unanimously. So the motion before the board is to bring the rule, and I don't have the rule number before me, to be assigned to a committee so it's a task force of the board. So we had to bring it to the board, which then would need to take it to send it to the executive committee. We weren't sure procedurally without Lorraine there because it's a task force that needs to come to the board, but then it would go to the executive committee to assign to a committee. Does that make sense? We needed you.
So the motion is to assign the rule that engages in the 3% rule to the executive committee to be assigned for discussion.
So yes, so it would go to executive committee. And so to help you guys understand what the 3% rule and where the barrier is for the Utah School of the Deaf and the Blind, I asked them to come here because I wouldn't be able to do it justice summarizing. So if the chair says it's okay, I could invite them to the table just to explain to the full board what this loophole is that's needing to be addressed.
Hi there. We'll try to be short. I need a break. I know you need a break. You've been here a long time. 3% rule, basically what it is any school district that has more than 3% of the state's total population, they have to pay for our services. So if they have less than 3% of the state's total population, they don't have to pay for our services. It causes a barrier in some kids that we could probably provide more services to them because of cost. The district doesn't want to pay for our costs, where we would love to give it to them free. So it's the opt-in to say, you can opt in to say, well, actually, you say, I'm opting out of the 3% rule, and then we can get funding from the state to allow that to happen for them.
Question?
Board Member Hanson.
I like the way she said, we can get funding from the state to have, like it was easy. So is it easy for you guys to get the funding? And that's my question. Or is it, the districts obviously do it because they don't want to have to pay for it themselves, but how easy is it for you guys to get the more funding for it?
It is, essentially going from the legislature and asking for an increase in our light item for that, for the upcoming school year. So yeah, as easy it is to get some money from the legislature is how easy it would be for us. But we're willing to do that and make the ask and to see what it does, because we'd like to provide more services to the kids.
I'm raising my hand.
Okay, Board Member Belknap.
Thank you, Chair Cummins. My question would be, is that already in one of your legislative priorities, or would we have to change that and it's a new one? The funding.
That would be for next year. It's not in one of our legislative priorities. It would be something you guys study, you guys look at it, and something we'd bring to the legislature next year, whatever was determined by the board.
Thank you.
Okay, Vice Chair Ellis.
Yes, thank you. I didn't see Deputy Superintendent Stallings behind you, so I texted her if she was here. She was not able to be in our committee because of pressing matters up at the Capitol last week, and so that's not to blame her, it's just that her brain knows these rules. And so that's why I don't have a couple of the rules that go along with some of these motions, the rule number. So, no, it's fine. So Angie can help clarify that motion for the minutes to reflect the rule number. That'd be helpful.
Board Member Lear.
I'm not sure who to ask, you folks or maybe one of the staff, but does the USDB appropriation or requests, do they come out of the general fund or out of the education fund?
Yeah, it's out of the education fund. It's a line item.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so we have a recommendation from the Eliminating Barriers Task Force to assign this rule that contains the 3% rule in it to be determined to as an agenda item to be determined its assignment by the executive committee. Any discussion to that motion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. That motion passes.
Okay, we had another item brought to us, please stay, by the Utah School of Deaf and the Blind. And there's another issue where schools or students move into the state and they aren't allowed to get temporary placement in the ASL program, and I'm going to butcher this, but the motion is to allow temporary placement for deaf ASL students moving to Utah from another state where they have previously been instructed in ASL to the full board for recommendation to assign to a committee. Member Cummins made the motion, Member Warner seconded the motion, and the vote was unanimous. And so I asked them if they would also explain a summary of what this issue is.
Basically, there are other state schools for the deaf where students actually reside and live on campus. They're around ASL students all the time. What happens is they come here, they're assigned to the district, and that's the gateway to get to USDB. They're in a mainstream classroom. They're in a classroom setting that's very unfamiliar to them. This would allow those students who come from out of state who are already in that same type of placement to put them in the exact same type of placement, and then we would call a meeting with the district, and then we'd make a determination of where they should actually be. So it's temporary to just move them right over to us so they don't have to go through that extra step, which sometimes can take a few months. So.
Okay, so the motion from the Eliminating Barriers Task Force is to bring this rule forward as well to be placed on the agenda by the executive committee. Any discussion to that motion? Okay, so the rule, I believe it's the same rule for both options. For both items, and so if we could just get the number of that rule. It starts with a 2 and it has a 7. Motion, if it is. Do we have confirmation that it is the same rule? I'm pretty sure that that's what Superintendent Coleman mentioned it when we were there. Okay.
Two 277-801 is all of USDB, and then it drills down beyond that. So.
Okay.
277-801 is.
Okay. So if we're okay, go ahead, Vice Chair Ellis.
So if we wanted to do the specific sections, I know the second one was section 3, if I remember right, for the temporary, but I don't know what the 3% rule, what section that would be. So section 3 and section 6.
Okay, so the motion is to bring R 277-801 as an agenda item for the executive committee to assign, including section 3 and 6. Is that a good enough motion? Okay, all right. Okay, is there any further discussion to that motion? Board Member Beebe?
Thank you for tightening that up. I had a student come to my school from another state, and he was temporarily placed in a classroom. And it is really upsetting and really distressing, and it is really hard on them. And I think that if we have parents who have any limitations, these students are more likely to be put in this situation for longer. So I really appreciate that we're addressing this, because I actually have seen this happen, and it is very stressful for these children. So thank you.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Okay, does that conclude? Okay, then we only have a few items left on the agenda: the strategic plan, the board chair's report, and board member comments. Do we want to take a break or finish up? 5 minutes. Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break and then be right back.